Hello everyone, today is Thursday, June 11th. I'm here with us, Brian Connors is with us. Brian's one of the seminarians for our diocese. And just continuing through our little theme for this week, talking about vocations, talking about discernment. As I mentioned to you, so yesterday I talked about how I came to discern that the Lord was calling me to be a priest. And then the day before that was Deacon Steve and Peter Sheffer. They talked about their vocation. So Brian's with us. Brian is from Taunton, Massachusetts, and he's got a great little story. And so Brian's in the seminary. Brian is entering second theology. The way it works in seminary is for men who have finished college or are close to finishing college, and they sense they're being called to the priest, and they've discerned, and they've met with their vocation director and things like that. They apply with the diocese. There's a practical application process we have that entails getting basic information of the guys, their sacramental history, their sacramental records. It entails a psychological evaluation. It's pretty detailed, psychological evaluation that we have the men do. That we have them write an autobiography, kind of tell their story, not only their history, but also how they came to discern that think God's calling them, because that's part of the role of vocation director. It's one of my jobs, is as men, maybe I meet with, chat with, I have to get a sense of like what they sense. Is that the ways in which God usually reveals his calling? Because there are some particular things that God tends to do with every vocation. Even though as you've been seeing the last few days, every vocation story is totally different. But there are some fundamental things that are always true. They have to get letters of recommendation, all sorts of their academic history, things like that. Anyway, if the diocese, and the bishop in particular, accepts them to be sponsored by the diocese, then they study in the seminary. And for men who have finished college or close to finishing college, they have to do 2 years of studying mostly philosophy in their academic part, and then it's 4 years of theology that they study. And it will vary. If they're much younger, like Deacon Steve, he came in out of high school, so he did 4 years of college seminary and then 4 years of major seminary, of the theology. So that's why it kind of varies from man to man. Peter Sheffer, who is much older and a lot more experience in life, he actually just had to do 1 year, if I recall correctly. Actually, no, he had a lot of philosophy before, so he just actually had to go right into theology. But the general norm is, for most men studying in the United States, they have to do 2 years of philosophy. That's called pre-theology, and then 4 years of theology. So Brian's entering his second year of theology. He has just completed his third year in the seminary, studying down at Immaculate Conception Seminary, down right outside of Newark in South Orange, New Jersey. So Brian's got his tea ready. What are you drinking today? English breakfast, and I've got Irish breakfast. So this is going to be a battle between the Irish and the English. We'll see who wins here. I'm drinking out of my T'nT, one of my 2 T'nT teacups. See, it says on there, it's backwards to you, but it says T in theology. There's the dynamite right there. And Brian just got some weird blue looking cup. Anyway.
Big and contains a lot of tea.
It is big, contains a lot of tea. All right, he's got honey in his tea too, so it's a good day.
And I just want to say, I'm not meaning to war against the Irish, because, Brian, Patrick, Connors, Irish, more Irish and English.
He does have more
grabs.
Yes. He just made the mistake of grabbing the English breakfast. Anyway, so Brian, what can you tell us? Tell us about yourself. Tell us about how you eventually came to discern that maybe God's calling you. If you want to talk about kind of like your life in the seminary after that, depending on what we have for time.
Sure. So. All right. As Father Kevin mentioned, everyone's vocation story is different. I so far have found mine to be slightly more unique than most people, considering I wasn't baptized until 5 years ago. I was raised with the ability to choose whatever religion I would want, because my parents were not practicing Catholics at the time. And when I was growing up, I thought that was a really cool thing, being able to choose to be exposed to whatever.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, because I wasn't actually going to any particular church, I didn't really have much of a faith life. I had nothing to really choose from because I wasn't really exposed. So I lived a very secular lifestyle, and growing up, early years, it seemed fine. My parents were around all the time, loving, supportive, and I have really had a good life. But not being baptized, there was always this kind of emptiness inside of me, a part of me that didn't feel complete, which I tried to fill with whatever kind of secular happinesses that the world had to offer.
Yeah.
Good grades, good at sports, a lot of friends. Believe it or not, one day I was actually pretty fit. My peak life was like between the ages of 6 and 9. It was awesome.
What sport? What sport?
Primarily soccer. But
Yeah, this is why I like Brian Connors. Soccer's the way to go. He's enlightened. Even though he didn't come to see the faith for a while, but he's been enlightened because he recognized the goodness of soccer. All right,
Yeah.
go on.
So unfortunately, because I only had the secular happiness to seek out, to try to just fill this void in me, which never succeeded because it wasn't God, and
Yeah.
God's the only thing that can actually bring you true happiness. But it was more of just distractions. Everything I did was to distract myself from it.
Okay.
And I became a perfectionist at a really young age because of it, and that was really tough because whenever I would mess up, it would bring me right back to that dark place.
Okay.
And
Did you have any sense of like God at all, or?
I did believe in God, but I didn't quite have a idea of who he was specifically. There was not necessarily a personal connection. I kind of knew he existed, and that life wouldn't really make sense without God to create everything. And but I never really had a connection.
Okay.
So after a while, whenever I would not succeed, regardless of how small it was, it would just bring me back to that terrible spot, and I kind of realized there was no point, at least in my mind, it seemed like there was no point in trying.
Yeah.
Because I was just gonna keep messing up at some point anyways. So I started to not really live for life so much. Not really care, not put a lot of effort into anything particular.
Yeah.
We moved from Dartmouth to Rehoboth when I was 10. Felt like I lost my friends, but I was still capable of making friends, so I still had a good support. And my dad wasn't quite around as much because the reason why we moved was because he got a new job or a higher position in the company or whatever. So he was staying later, and felt like another thing less supportive. So I gradually stopped doing homework, and I stopped playing sports when we moved because one, my dad wasn't going to be the assistant coach anymore because he was too busy. He tried to be assistant coach on anything. And also I was diagnosed with diabetes, which I used as an excuse to not play so I wouldn't disappoint anyone when I would mess up. So by the time I entered high school, for those of you who live around here probably know that Dayton and Rehoboth combined 2 middle schools into 1 high school. And I felt like I lost even more of my friends because they made friends with other friends, and I was kind of just on the outside. So at that point, I was out of shape. I stopped doing homework because I wasn't really getting good grades. I didn't really feel like I had a lot of friends, and my parents never not loved me. They've always been good and supportive, but with everything else going on, it felt kind of hard to see sometimes, which was totally on me because they never not loved me in any way. But I just kind of felt like I was living a meaningless existence, and that the people I cared about was just kind of a burden to them.
So when did that start to turn? What happened?
Thankfully, some friends helped me out of that. Some people cared about me more than I thought. But it kind of just put me back on the normal existence I was living prior to that. I graduated high school somehow, then went straight to college for an associate's degree in human services, and the plan was to go on for psychology after that because I want to help people the way that my friends helped me. I still couldn't live for myself in any way, only living for my friends at that point, so I didn't really do well in college either. I couldn't get the homework done, so I ended up getting a general education degree in general education, but it took longer than the 2 years should have. And at that point, I was like, oh, I'm too stupid for school, and just got a job at T'nT for way longer than I wanted to have been there.
For those not familiar, T'nT is a grocery store, just so you know.
Yeah,
All right, go on. Sorry.
Deli. But it was during that time that my mom started going back to the Catholic faith. My parents split up when I was in high school and got like officially divorced like 5 years later. It was a really slow process. And she was in a pretty rough spot too. And when she started going back to church, I noticed that she was different. She seemed happier, and I asked her, "Mom, you seem a lot happier lately. What happened?" She said, "I went back to church." And so I decided, my thoughts were, all right, I'll give it a shot. Like, why not? Like, it didn't have, like, what could it hurt, you know? So I started going to the RCA program at Holy Family in Taunton, well, East Taunton, I guess, pretty close to where I live. So to all of you from Holy Family who are watching, thank you for all the support that you've given me throughout my years of discernment from that point moving forward. This guy was the pastor.
I was the pastor at that time. I have no idea what I was doing by allowing him in the RCA, but keep going.
Right? Dangerous mistake on your part. So Father Kevin ended up baptizing me, giving me confirmation in my first communion and everything. And it was the day that I was baptized when I was able to feel whole and complete for the first time. It brought about it a sense of peace that even when I would mess up, I wouldn't have to hate myself for it. This funny story, I'm not sure if you remember or noticed, but we were supposed to blow out the candles and then relight them later during I didn't blow it out. And the only other guy who was being baptized with me, he noticed the whole time, but I was not paying attention to what was going on around me, just the mass. And so it's like, and now it's time to relight these the baptismal candles. I turn and look, his is out. I've been like melting wax on my hand for like the last 10 minutes, like just going like, oh, it's manageable. It's okay, I'm good. I'm being baptized. This is great, right? So I look over, his is out. I'm like, oh man, I blow mine out. Then he's gonna be like, normally I would be upset with myself for a long while after that, but I didn't care. It was a great confirmation with this, of the peace of it and all.
So kind of radical change that you saw pretty quick in your life. Yeah.
But,
now, how about, so after that, how do you start to sense that maybe the Lord was even asking something more of you, something different of you? How did you come to discern that?
So, I'm not sure this is ironic or what, but I actually felt like potentially I may have been called at my baptism, because I was thinking how cool it was that priests could do this and how great it could help them, and I really kind of connected to it because this happened to me personally. But I figured, well, I've been Catholic all of 2 minutes. There's no way Jesus would want me. So thankfully, I was still going to church, and J.R. Pimentel one day approached me and my mom when we were at church and mentioned that there was a retreat, Emmaus, happening in just about 2 months. It started on the day of my birthday. So
cool.
Yeah, I went to that, because I figured, I guess so. I mean, like, what's to hurt, everything. A recurring theme throughout my entire vocational discernment was kind of saying yes. There's a lot of just, when an opportunity will come, say yes to it, and it really propelled everything forward. But so I went to Emmaus, got a good faith support. Everyone there was amazing, and thankfully that's very much needed when some new person comes into the faith. They need to realize there's a community that loves them, supports them. Otherwise, they're walking it alone. And a huge part of our faith is community and communion. So I'm thankful again for everyone at Holy Family, everyone who was at Emmaus, both times I went to Emmaus.
Yeah.
So Father Kevin invited me to Quo Vadis that summer.
Yeah, which is a vocation camp that we run. Unfortunately, this year because of the pandemic, we were not going to be able to do it. But we do it last, 10 years, I think. We've been doing it. So Brian came and helped out with it.
Yeah, and it was good because there's a lot of talks about vocation and kind of working towards a sermon. And then this man in his great wisdom knew that I lacked that and
That's right, my wisdom.
So I got experience with that. Got to meet the seminarians. Seminarians are normal people as well. It was cool to see. And was thinking about it, but didn't have anything one way or the other. Like, yeah, okay, I definitely need to go into this. But then I went to Curcio in the fall. That was when I realized God loved me particularly as an individual and not just as a creation of His, that He loves everything because God is love. It became more personal to me, and that was huge because they did a reflection on the prodigal son, and He really put you in the place of being the prodigal son and the father receiving you despite everything they've done in the past. Then, like a month later, maybe 2 months later, I got a call from the upcoming Emmaus retreat.
Well, you're just like a retreat machine.
Right? Well, early time. I don't have too much time with them much anymore. But they are great opportunities, experiences, and ability to grow both in your faith and with others.
Yeah.
But, so the vice director, assistant director, co-director, there we go, that way. Co-director for Emmaus, the one upcoming, gave me a call, and I was ignoring it. Like email, phone call, I was like, no, I'm not good enough for this. I was putting it off, and she reached out like 1 or 2 more times, and then I figured people pray really hard for these sort of things, for who's going to be on our team for retreat, to our success, anything really in a religious component. I feel put a lot of prayer into it for it to succeed and get everything ready for it to go how it's supposed to go. So figured they prayed about it and they got my name. So I called her back, expressing how I didn't feel worthy, but if I'm sure they prayed, and if this is what it's meant to be, then I'll do it. And it was like 2 days before our first team meeting, and thankfully they hadn't replaced me because they realized that they should stick to how the prayers went. Ironically, I got Confidence in Christ as my retreat talk. So, because it's all about trying to trust in Him. So that went really well. And then I went on discernment retreat in that March and grew a little bit more solid in this, but still wasn't quite convinced. Then the following summer, I was on Quo Vadis again. And when I get there, all the teenagers and stuff were asking me, so are you going to enter the seminary? And I was like, yeah, maybe one day. And by the time that it was ending, I said, yeah, probably next year, because I talked to 2 of the seminarians who just entered the year before me, said it was like a 3 to 4 months process of applying. So I was like, all right, well, there's no way I'm getting it this year. So I mentioned it to Father Kevin, who was leading it, because he's the vocations director and he just heads Quo Vadis. And he said, yeah, it probably won't happen this year, but maybe next. So the retreat ends, I go back to work. The Tuesday, he calls me up. He's in Canada on a priest retreat, and he's like, so Brian, you still think about entering seminary? I was like, yeah, why? He's like, well, we could get you in this year if you want. I'm like, so at that moment, I was like, huh. And I just figured I needed to say yes, because the opportunity fell upon me, and I did. I had like 3 weeks to apply, which was normally a 3 to 4 month process. I had to quit my job and everything. It was hectic times.
It was hectic. I've never done that with anyone else, and it all came together. It was amazing. It all came together in the span of, I think it was 3 weeks or so. And a month later, he was in the seminary. So Anyway, so we've gone well past, we're at 10:20 here, but it's because Brian has an incredible story. So Brian,
Yes.
great job, man.
Thanks.
Way to go. Way to go. So keep Brian in your prayers as he continues through trying to respond to that call of the Lord, is strengthening that clarity that if the Lord's calling him, feeling more and more that he is calling him. But we keep praying for him for that grace, because obviously any calling is a response to grace. So keep him in your prayers. And again, we have this week, very exciting, we have the ordination of both the transitional deacon, Peter, and then the priesthood for our diocese, Deacon Steve becoming a priest for our diocese. And just keep them in your prayers, keep Brian in your prayers. And once again, thanks for everyone joining us. I got to get a little Frank Sinatra started here. Here we go. There's some Frank. Brian's not he was more the AC/DC in his earlier life. I don't know if he's become a Frank fan yet. You may not even know who Frank Sinatra is, but
I knew it the first day you were playing.
But I want to thank all of you guys for joining us today. Hopefully you have a wonderful day here in this area. I think we're supposed to get some thunderstorms possibly today, but nonetheless, it's still a great manifestation of God's works. But we'll see you tomorrow, Saturday. I'll have to do the show a little bit earlier because of the ordination. So you might not be able to see it live on Saturday. But anyway, we will see you soon. Have a great day, everyone. God bless.